Oh, it's another young adult novel adaptation with a bunch of sequels. Kill me.
At 1:07 a.m., the Odyssey satellite received images of an unfamiliar object moving past Mars. It stopped 250 miles above the Earth and is now orbiting our planet.
We called them the Others.
What do they want?
Earth. That's the reason they're here, Cass. They need the Earth.
The Fifth Wave. So The Fifth Wave is directed by Jay Blakeson, and it stars Chloe Grace Moretz, Nick Robinson, Liev Schreiber, and Alex Rowe. Basically, aliens came down from Earth, and they started orbiting the planet. And then they sent 4 waves of destruction and death and stuff upon the Earth to wipe out humans. The first wave was they cut out the power. The second wave was literally a wave. The third wave was a bird flu, basically. And the fourth wave was them coming down and taking over humans' minds. And now we're at the fifth wave. I would like to say that the opening 20 minutes of this movie were actually quite interesting. It was them talking about how all the waves happened and what they were doing whilst those waves were happening. In the trailer they have the scene where she goes out to the petrol station and she sees a guy. Yeah, that's the opening scene. It had tension, but ultimately that scene's gone fairly quickly, and they revisit it later in the movie, which makes me wonder why they made it the opening scene. The acting the acting, it's basically generic. There's no one special. There's no one different. They're all cliched and underwritten characters. Chloe Grace Moretz plays like Katniss Everdeen. She's not Katniss Everdeen because she doesn't fire a bow or anything, but she's there doing the Katniss Everdeen-y things, like looking after her family, and all the characters, they're generic. They come across, you're like, oh, that's the bad guy. That's the love interest. That guy's Jacob. That guy's the Jacob character. That guy's the Edward character. Liev Schreiber, he also did the best with what he had to work with. He played very generic. Like everyone else, again, they're very generic. And that leads me to say they're the only two good acting performances in this movie. Everyone else was terrible. Alex Rowe, so bad. He really was. He also came off as a very creepy character because when you first meet him, he has basically kidnapped Chloe Grace Moretz, taken her 14 miles, and then he cut off all her clothes, put on new ones, and then wrapped her in a bandage. 'Cause that's not creepy at all. Oh yeah, where he took her to? A cabin in the woods. He's also in college. She's in high school. The editing in this movie was also quite good. When they filmed the action, you could see how the action was unfolding. There was no quick edits. But that also meant they did this weird humorous thing. You couldn't tell whether they were going for comedy or not. They really could have gone either ways because of the editing. And I'm not even sure if they were trying to go for the editing. I thought they were going for something like, hey, director guy, wouldn't it be funny if we cut to this guy, or we cut to this person when they were doing this? And then they did, and people were laughing, but they shouldn't have been laughing because it's an action movie. There wasn't any funny bits. They would cut to guys staring at girls' asses. They would cut to, in the middle of a scene, cut to the guy right next to the kiss. It was just very awkward comedy. On to the list of bad things about this movie. The writing is absolutely lousy. I've said this before 5 times. The characters are generic. They just are. The story is generic. Some things are confusing and left unexplained because we gotta set up the sequel, which leads me to the second problem. The ending. It's like The Maze Runner. It really is. Which leads me to the story. The story is boring and incoherent. There's not much more to say about it. The plot holes are everywhere. You can see the beginning of what's going to be a love triangle, and that's going to be terrible if they make sequels. The child acting, especially from these teenage kids, absolutely garbage. They just were. There was no character development for anyone at all, except for Chloe Grace Moretz, because you got to see her evolve throughout the story. You got to see what she wanted to do, what she liked to do. And they try to give development for Alex Rowe's character, but overall it just becomes off as confusing. And the action sequences, despite being edited fairly well, you could tell they were a stuntman because they were lit so poorly. There's an action sequence in the broad daylight, and it's dark, and you're wondering, And all the other action sequences at night, they're there for it being at night. Like, there was no specific reason for it to be at night, other than just sleeping. After the enjoyable, fun 20 minutes that was at the beginning, the movie became predictably like, alright, this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and all of it happened. You only have to watch 20 minutes to see the whole movie unfolding. Fifth Wave, it's not a good movie whatsoever by any critical or fun standpoint. I'm not the target audience, unbelievably, even though I'm a teenager. So I'm just gonna give The Fifth Wave a 3 out of 10. I don't recommend this movie really for anything, unless you're renting it on DVD or out on Tuesday or something. Leave a like this video if you enjoyed it. Tell me if you have seen The Fifth Wave in the comments down below. And subscribe to become one of the Platypus, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.